Yep, I am recording now.
Oh, cool.
If anyone is concerned about that, please drop. And yep, and we will publish this to our YouTube channel. I think we're going to probably just start going towards more just immediate, non-edited versions, unless there's something that absolutely needs to be edited. We'll put those up quickly on our channel. So I'm just checking one thing real quick to make sure our recording is doing its job correctly. Yep, good. All right. So, hi everybody, welcome to the, is this the fourth or the third? The third meeting of the Technical Steering Committee for the Baseline Protocol. And looks like we have the core group here. Probably a few more people will drop in. It's nice to see you. We got Eric, we got Stefan, we got Nate, Kyle, Hudson, Karthik, Johan is there, Brian, and Zach. So that's pretty close. That's a quorum. I'll pull up. Did everybody get the workflowy with the agenda? Start with that. Does anybody not have access to that? Yep.
Actually, I do not. I thought I did.
All right.
You can post that in chat.
Sure thing. Yeah, for 1 second. And I'll share screen. And I'll create a new project here.
It looks like that's a living document. Can we maybe add the link to the meeting invite?
Yes. It's actually in the meeting invite.
Oh, I didn't see it.
So, good idea. Share.
The meeting invite has a link to the GitHub, and it goes to committers or people that are contributing, kind of their guidelines. Didn't go to the agenda.
How strange! I must be misremembering, but I could have sworn I put the link in there. I might have provided the wrong link.
You posted issue 52 in there, John.
That would definitely be the wrong link. But the intention was this. Thanks for pointing the error out. I'll fix that for next time. Yeah, so this is now this link up here is so I've got to share screen. So here's the TSC meeting link, and I've got the share link that we just shared in the chat. And I will change that actually. I'll make sure that we don't publish that to the web so that not everybody has the edit link for this forever. Just realized that would be a bad idea. So we're on the third meeting. The agenda I've got here is review and drive maintainer docs and policy of final review. And so Brian and Karthik can give an update on that. Review and decide on how to manage the repo. And another one is that I was just talking about with somebody today was about priorities for next couple of weeks. April. So what do we want to encourage people to work, to focus on and do things about? Because you didn't have this, and I thought you did. Let's take just a couple of minutes to see if there are other issues or agenda items that need to fall in here. Hello? Anyone?
I have nothing else to add.
Okay. Stefan, you got any news or anything you want to bring up? I know you guys have been working hard.
Yeah, sure. News. There are a lot of news, but not concerning the way we want to set this up in, I don't know, in ZenHub or anything. Still need some more time for that, I guess. Or do you mean updates on the actual development progress from our hackathon, for example? Is this the right place? I don't know.
Yeah, that might actually be worth talking about. So update.
Okay, cool.
John, I'd like to check in on the CI integration process and if there's any activity there or any hardware needs.
Got that. Excuse me, not COVID.
Hey, John, real quick, I actually did just think of something for the agenda on the roles and permissions section. Say look into, or actually after ZenHub epics and GitHub issues, say look into GitHub projects. Just to, yeah, that could be right there. That'd be fine.
Say GitHub projects versus ZenHub projects.
Yes, because there was some issues with that I read about from I think it was the email or even just this agenda about the epics and GitHub issues.
Right on. Anything else, Connor? You have any thoughts? One of the things that we'll talk about in terms of priorities are. Eric, help me out with what were the three ones we were talking about the other day? Specs.
The real world integration, the specifications,
use cases.
Yeah, use cases.
And then abstraction.
Yeah.
Generalization.
Yep. There you go.
Specs living document. Okay. Anything else? Going once, going twice? Johan? Zach?
Nothing pops to mind right now.
Right on.
Yeah, likewise.
I think we'll talk about in real world integration, Johan, in particular. I think you guys in Unibright and some other folks are the experts on this team on that subject, and so we can get to you on that. So let's get to it. The agenda. So reviewing and maintainer docs and the policy. Brian, Karthik, do you have a bit of an update for that?
Yeah, we're just going through final revisions, and we'll have an update pushed out to GitHub, hopefully by the end of the day.
That's terrific.
We've already, we've already added a couple of maintainers who've given us their GitHub handles, and we're just kind of ironing out the roles and procedure for the role of a maintainer, and then the procedure for becoming one, and what the job is essentially. Yeah.
What would you say the highlights are? The one or two highlights for what one should say, because people are asking. I've been getting this question quite a bit. What can I do as a maintainer? Sure. Well, quite a bit, but I still one hand, but that's in my day that's enough of a signal that people are interested in the topic. So what would you say are a couple of reasons or things that people should know to become a maintainer? What do we want to do?
Well, we don't quite have the merit badge approach that you had mentioned, where it was kind of an atomic level of if I do this, then I get a check in the box for that, and if I do this, then there's a check in the box for that, and then if I get enough check boxes, then I can become a maintainer. We unfortunately don't have that level of
It's always been
granularity.
vague.
At least not yet, but it's a vague. I'll just say, so yeah, to become a maintainer, you just need to show consistent contributions to the code of the project. Can be in the form of pull requests that get merged into master, or say like system architecture and related artifacts that guide the technical development of the project. We obviously look for people who are experts in one or more fields related to the project, and that's about it. We're proposing the TSC meetings, or these meetings, we propose new maintainers, and then the current maintainers must vote to bring in a new maintainer. We haven't figured out, or at least written down, the process for the vote and who is monitoring the voting and taking kind of minutes on that part of the procedure yet. So hopefully I can flesh that out today.
Right. So TSC proposes.
Well, people in the TSC meeting, it's just during the TSC meeting, that's when anyone that can join the TSC, I suppose, and propose.
So if you want to get nominated, and you want to be on the maintainer team, get to a TSC member or maintainer, and we will bring your name up during the next TSC meeting, and that will be the maintainer thing. I think check me if I'm wrong. Connor has other folks that have done this. The maintainers typically don't go to the TSC to decide whether or not somebody should be a maintainer. They usually just say, yeah, you're a maintainer. And if they can't agree, then the TSC steps in. That said, I don't know that I disagree with your approach. What do other people have to say about that?
I certainly couldn't speak for how things are done, say, in Hyperledger, where it is quite formal. But I would presume that we do have a good degree of autonomy with it, and I'm certainly, from my own personal perspective, would think in the earlier days surely it would make sense to at least notify the TSC of maintainers if this decision is made autonomously by existing maintainers. But then, I've worked, my experience has more been on, I guess, pure open source projects rather than I suppose industry-backed open source projects, if you see what I mean.
Right on.
What's the main difference in your experience between the sort of the industry-backed and the non-industry-backed open source projects in terms of how they're managed, like in this level?
Sorry, was that a question?
That was for you. Yeah.
Yes, that was a question for you.
Sorry.
Explain the difference you alluded to there.
Yes. Well, I think from my own perspective, it's more been on pure open source that I've worked more extensively on. As in where I guess to me, I'd say if we were going to look at, within the EA, for instance, it's very much so working groups within the EA are free to kind of run things as they want. But say with Hyperledger, I think if we wanted to look at kind of, I guess the other end of the spectrum, which has obviously taken a lot of leads for how things are done within the Linux Foundation, then the process there is somewhat different in that, you have your TSC, the members are elected to it, and so on and so forth, and there's, very clear governance around it. I'd say more broadly, the question is how rigorous do we want to be in these earlier sort of bootstrapping phases for this body? I would personally be more supportive of being slightly looser in the early days. I don't mean, not in a way that, it means there's any less integrity, but more just it gives people a bit more autonomy to get things done.
Mm-hmm. When you say like a pure or true open source, you mean one that isn't managed by an organization.
Yeah, an organization or like a clear industry body.
So this would be from, I mean, my experience, what I think you mean is like, some person or a small team at an existing company kind of open sources a project they had worked on, and it's more organic, kind of grassroots development over time. Is that what you mean? Like kind of the pure open source?
Yeah. I mean, so, where, for instance, I've spent a lot of time has been with the Web3J project, which that's something that I was extensively involved in for a long time. And there it was, everything was done much more organically. Whereas, if we were, say, to submit the project to be, say, included in Hyperledger at some point down the line, then there'd be a whole load of governance that would need to go with it around like release schedules and, various bits of, various requirements for it. But that's because, Hyperledger is, of course, following the lead from the Linux Foundation. Whereas if something's, existing more as, so going back to Web3J has as a pure open source project, we kind of, we make the decisions which we feel are purely best for the community there. With Baseline, I don't think we're trying to necessarily be something as, we want to be taken very seriously in terms of, what the project's trying to achieve and everything else, but it's just, the right level of governance at this point in time, whether the TSC has to approve people committed, approve maintainers or not, I think is, I don't think it matters too much at this point in time which approach we go to. I think if it was down to me, I'd say let's just let the maintainers choose. But again, I'm not sort of firmly wedded to either right now.
Okay, that's good advice. Yeah, I was trying to, with the current proposed voting approach, kind of mirror what we have in some other aspects of the governance. But it's good to know, I mean, or at least good to consider that maybe we don't need that level at this stage.
Could we
in
do
that
it
case,
the way
then
you suggested?
Well, I guess in that case, then there wouldn't be a proposal at the TSC. It might just be the maintainers can, maybe at the weekly maintainer meetings, which we decided will be public, propose and vote, and then it can kind of be just within the maintainer group that maintainers come and go. Because I guess that does seem appropriate at this stage, I suppose. Yeah.
So can I just confirm with like the, were you thinking just that it would be actually down to a vote of the TSC for maintainers?
Well, I guess I thought it'd be the proposal would happen during the TSC, like a meeting like this, and it would be up to the maintainers to vote. But I guess obviously the fact of with that being proposed in this meeting, it would kind of be a pre-vetting and a discussion about that person and what they've done. And I suppose with the proposal, whoever was proposing them would need to offer some evidence about why they should be a maintainer, and then that could be taken under advisement by the maintainers. But maybe that is a bit maybe that is a bit disjointed because not every maintainer is in this meeting. So,
but I mean, over time, though, you wouldn't anticipate the maintainers being in this meeting, all of them. You'd see that change, and I mean, certainly what happens within the EEA with working group chairs is that they change over time, and a decision is made, and then it goes to the board of the EEA for approval. I mean, maybe if we would like to have some sort of approval.
We've got in the governance doc for TSC. We're still working on the SSC governance doc. That'll be the thing for next time, the next hour. There is a pretty solid procedure for that. Let me propose something and see if we can get loose consensus on it, so we can move to the next agenda item. What if, I was listening to Connor, listening to Brian, what if we said, look, you can propose during the TSC meeting, you can propose during the maintainers meeting. As TSC meetings get to be monthly as opposed to weekly or biweekly, it will probably become obvious that the maintainer meeting is the time to get proposed. and that will be fine. But if we, for now, we say, look, we will review who got on to the maintainer meeting during TSC meetings, and we can propose during TSC meetings, but you can also propose and vote during maintainer meetings. And if those maintaining meetings are now open to attendance, presumably, by the way, Brian, like folks like myself or others who are not true maintainers, except in terms of all of us on the TSC have admin access to the repo, which is another topic for another day. How we maintain roles and permissions.
Yep.
That the etiquette would be maintainers speak during maintainer meetings. We can attend and listen.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. We want to make it very open, and I think there's some models out there. Getting the project, but I was very impressed with the. Just drawing a blank here. I was just looking at their YouTube channel, but yeah, the maintainer meetings are going to be open and available to anybody, and especially someone in your role, John, because you're while not contributing code, contributing a lot to the thought leadership and certainly documentation. So we do want, and that, I mean, that's incredibly critical to the project, having good documentation. So we want to be able to carve out at least what that means, contributing in ways that are not directly code, but also important to maintaining the project. But I did also want to follow up with the point you made there about the admin access. I mean, unless there's a different view of admin to the repo, there's only 4 people who have admin access to the current baseline repo. And it's a subset of the current maintainers. So Sam, myself, Patrick, Karthik are the only 4 admins as far as I'm aware. Everyone else has either right or the new maintainers we added, there's a maintainer role. So we actually have
I don't see Jory on here. When Jory is on, or we can take it offline, I think in my investigation, I discovered that all TSC members as a team have, unless I'm mistaken, I could be, admin rights. And I'm not sure that's correct. I'm not sure that's true, nor if it is true, am I sure that that's what it should be.
Okay.
So it's on the agenda to actually discuss. So,
all right, that'd be worth looking into.
Yeah, absolutely. I think it's time for us to lock this kind of stuff down. The content, the only thing remaining here is, do we want a piece? Do you want to commission, Brian, and do we want to set an agenda item for the next meeting to have some content to consume for a new maintainer to get alignment, so that we know that they have the basics and that they understand the priorities and blah blah blah? Or do you see that as a more organic process? What are your thoughts there, Karthik, as well?
I'll go and then I'll let Karthik add in. Yes, I do. I mean, I think that would be useful for the community. And I mean, even if it was not for maintainers, anyone who contributes to the code base, we do have a contribution guide, but it's more generic in terms of, procedure, process, and sort of general guidelines. But we, I would like to have some kind of video. I think that, I guess I'm assuming a video would be an appropriate medium for this, maybe 1 or 2 high-level videos. I feel like that's a little bit more consumable these days than a long document or anything like that. That's just my thinking. It would be great to do that with like sometime this week or next week and have that up. But that's as far as I've thought about it. Karthik, do you have anything or thoughts on that?
I think you covered most of the important parts, Brian. I think apart from, in terms of the video also, just wondering what your thoughts are about what should be in the video. Is it like a end-to-end demo of how things work, or is it more about, hey, so these are some of the issues you might face and this is how you might want to fix things? Or is it something to that extent, or just wondering what the content of the video should be?
Yeah, good questions. I guess in my mind it was a high-level philosophy of baselining and the concepts in a generic sense, and then also the high-level explanation of what the baseline repo is, like, so more of the specifics of like, well, there's this repo, and then we have the Radish folder, and that's the POC, and here's the kind of milestones that we're kind of pushing for in the next few months, and kind of set that, and then talk about, you know, well, here's what we do. You have to write tests, you have to use linting, you have to do some of the mechanics of the day-to-day. So just kind of like, imagine if you were onboarding someone at a new company, and you have like your training day. You just sit down and be like, okay, here's what we like to do. Here's how we kind of like to do things, like that kind of thing.
Yeah,
I think the setup stuff is important, but probably best for automated scripts, and then that could be text-based kind of learning.
Well, I think that's a good set of activities. I wrote them down here. I'll scratch out oral exam. I was joking. But video, docs page, standards and practices. It sounds like 3 high-level pieces, right? Standards and practices, high-level concepts, and specific folder walkthroughs. And as I recall, we have 2 of those already in some form. Daniel and team from Envision did one. Stefan has done another, and team have done another one. And then we have our own. Or then I think we have at least 3 sets of assets right now for what the high-level concepts are. We also have a specific folder walkthrough that Karthik did. You and Karthik did, Brian, as I recall. So we have those 2 things. We could put those both, highlight them on a page,
Yeah.
okay. Docs. And then I don't think we have a standards and practices one and so that would be the last one.
Okay, so then maybe there's not as much work as I thought. I guess it's sort of organizing it and pulling it together in one place.
Well, certainly, you know, we have some stuff to start with, and I think, you know, we can improve it over time.
Great. So I guess I'll take that on as an action item for next week, and definitely next week for to update here at the TSC about that.
Right on. Okay, so on to the next item. Without dissent, review and decide on how to manage the repo. So, and we had a little highlight of this a second ago. ZenHub epics and GitHub issues. There's a question of how we want to handle this. ZenHub specifically creates no item in the repo for projects in the ZenHub project thing. So if I go over here and I start up ZenHub, which by the way should work for everyone now, but only people who are in the org, and this is something we have to talk about in a second, can be assigned to anything or do anything with any of this stuff. So you have to have at least read access, not just view access, which is what every view allows you to fork and clone and pull and stuff, but you can't and contribute, but you don't have read access, you know, in the GitHub style. So here in the ZenHub, if you go in the roadmap, these big boxes, TSC, maintainer governance, hosted base, none of these show up in GitHub unless I'm missing something. Brian, can you confirm? I tried it yesterday.
Sorry, it was what? I actually can't. I'm on. Let me see. So
like SSC governance, I can't find that.
Okay, let me just take a quick look. I thought they were.
But I can find write SSC governance doc, which is an epic. And those are issues with an epic label on them in GitHub. That's how ZenHub handles it.
Sorry, so this one says SSC governance, and which one? Write SSC governance docs. So I should see write SSC governance docs.
Write SSC governance docs is item 65. But SSC governance has no object in GitHub.
Yes, I see that. Yeah, so I see write SSC doc 65, ratify SSC at 66, implement at 67. Yeah. But no high level one. Okay.
No high level project level thing.
Got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
Question, the net of the question at hand is, how do we organize to actually to start executing and sort of focusing fire of the community and being an effective force two basic approaches, right? Put it all in one repo and try to manage it with the risk of becoming a mess, or put it in multiple repos and manage it with the risk of becoming a mess. Choose your poison, right? So this is a time I'd like to allow for 10 minutes of discussion with no intention to close the issue, but rather to start some thinking that we can close in the next meeting.
Well, that's a great idea. Yeah, I hear what you're saying about it. I think, one, where it becomes a mess, or two, that becomes a mess. I mean, entropy is inevitable. So it takes people to kind of keep them in line. And if there's no one there as a steward, then yeah, I mean, you have the chaos. It's just the natural state of the universe. So fighting that is a lot of effort. So I think the other thought that's all I have to say about that point. So I don't actually know the answer to that one. I say maybe managing in two spots, if it's the same person, could be challenging, but if it's two different people and they have two different ways of running and managing the work, then that might be okay. I think for GitHub, the actual work items, the end result of using GitHub issues is a ticket, or GitHub parlance, an issue, and that is a unit of work that a group of people can take on and bring to completion through a set pipeline stages and things like that, whether it's like, in the backlog in the icebox. So we won't, you're using sprint parlance, but at some point someone takes that on and assigns it to themselves, says, I'm going to do this, and then it's their responsibility to complete it to the satisfaction of the author. So I wonder, with a lot of these ones that are more high level, like specifically like write the SSC governance doc, the end result, what is the unit of work for that? Does that get broken down into a set of tickets where it's like, oh, write the intro is one ticket, and write the process and procedure is another ticket, and then get it reviewed is another ticket? And are those things that anybody can do, or engineers and maintainers and things, people who would typically look at the issues, or is it a set for a specific group of people? So I guess I have two questions from that. Was kind of rambling, but like, is the issue the appropriate level of granularity for the high level epic kind of project management level tasks? And are those something that everyone, including engineers, would take on and be able to work on?
So I think it's going to depend on what's actually in the issue. I mean, I think a lot of times an issue is going to be broken out into many stories, or many stories that fall under an epic.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Typically an issue. Yeah. I mean, if we're following straight up agile practices, right, an issue should be something that's containable within a sprint. Sprints are an interesting concept in community work, and something we should be looking into more. But in this case, the way I like to think of it is, if it starts with an action verb, it's probably a task. And we've started with the notion, this is a variation on the methodology, is that epics are the land of topics and buckets and stories, and issues are the land of engineering tasks. And if you want to know which one you've got, or engineering, or just kind of do stuff tasks, if you want to know which one you've got, look and see if you've got an action verb at the start of the sentence. If you do, then you probably have a task, which means it should be an issue. And if you don't, you probably either have a story or some level of epic. And because ZenHub allows you to nest epic within epic, it allows you to create kind of a compartment, or a pretty flexible plastic way of boxing things up, without forcing engineering into figuring out the ontology of every single task they have to deal with.
Yeah, and then one of the benefits of breaking things down into tasks is you kind of break them up by specialty. You know, you may have someone who's doing, oh, this feature requires a design change, some logic change, business logic change, some deployment changes, and you can label them and sort of subdivide by specialty. With a lot of these high-level ones, are we going to have that same level of breakdown where, like, oh, only one person is going to be able to write the SSC governance, and only another person is going to be able to, due to their specialities, you know, not due to any other reason than they're just experts in that one thing. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I should think that on a good day, and I think, as you said before, entropy rules ultimately. So, you know, we don't always have good days, but on a good day, for example, this is an error. I think I wrote it. Write SSC governance doc is not an epic. In fact, I changed a couple of these already where you know, it starts with an action verb. It should be it's an issue, and it should be within some other. It should be an issue pointing to some higher level thing like governance or SSC governance. And then you can say, yeah, in fact, you know, we need to break this down because that issue is too big. You know, write the whole governance doc in one small period of time, maybe not possible. Let's break that work up into chapters, right? So you could have chapters.
Yeah, I mean, even think about like what you're just saying. It's like, yeah, you don't sit down. I mean, just thinking about the writing process, and I mean, I'm not a writer per se, but you know, you come up with an outline and then a draft, and then you show it to some folks, you get some feedback, and then you do some other versions, and then you have a meeting about it, and then so it's like there is a pipeline of like that. So yeah, I think for something like a write SSC governance docs, it would be like, okay, well, when we're writing a ticket for development, it's like, as a so-and-so, so I have a whatever, I need this, you know. I don't know if that's appropriate to apply to this case, but it might be something to think about, is like the description or the title indicating like what's the value in actually doing this work. You know, we have templates that are for the code issues, for bugs and features and things. So I don't know if would that be helpful applying here at the epic level.
Yeah, I would have a question concerning this as well, perhaps to make it a little bit clearer to me. When last time you showed John, you showed the ZenHub project management or timeline, or what's it called, tab, I understood it more as a planning tool, as a higher level planning tool. And then when I tried to understand what kind of sub-steps I could provide or propose for the system of record integration tools, then of course I don't have the actual ability to do so, because for example, general integration APIs or Unibright services is already on issue level. So the question is, who would be the right person or the right role in charge to first build something of like a high level structure of, so to say, epics within epics that should be tackled in the next weeks, and that could at some point hold a lot of issues that might be broken down into smaller issues. But before we get to that step, I would like to have a tool where I could propose some kind of generic development or architectural outline regarding to system of record integration. In the current setup, also given my GitHub user and the associated role with the ZenHub, I can do this because I don't have any rights to provide something.
You've brought up an important topic that we've also just about, that's the next topic, in fact.
Okay.
These kinds of rights.
Yeah. One other thought I'll just throw out there is something that popped in my mind is, I worked at the last place I was employed, was holding off on creating epics and issues in that matter, and breaking down the project until as late in the process of ideation and design as possible. So, you know, you would start off maybe with one high level, like you have in your other previous view, before they become epics, where it just is the SSC governance docs, and then inside there, you put all the details. Maybe instead of creating epics, you actually write them as text, and then you just, when you actually then say, okay, we've planned enough that we can actually go execute, then you turn them into epics and issues, and then you break it down, and then you assign work, and you kind of put it in the queue. So you actually use a standard Word or text based document with bullets and headings and things to scaffold your work and add color and context and share it with folks before you then kind of press it into a template that is more rigid, like epics and issues, you know, with specific labels and projects and milestones and estimates and all that stuff. That's like, we found that to work very well because it didn't clutter up the repo with a lot of like,
Yeah.
oh, I have an idea, let me just create an epic for it without really thinking it through. You start with a document, and then you make sure everybody who's going to be potentially working on that part of the project reviews that document, adds comments, and then fleshes it out. And then at some point you're like, okay, this is ready to go, and then we're going to cut all of our issues and epics out of it, and then you know, people can just run with it in whatever.
Yeah, that would be also the perfect, that would also be the perfect answer to my concern, so to say, because when I understand it right, currently the SOR integration tools is a project, and it's not possible to create any sub-project that do not mess up the Git repo, but are more like a structuring tool, first of all. So I think this is not possible to have projects within projects. So this is why we are directly on epic level now under the SOR integration tools. And perhaps the way you just outlined would be that we first have some head document, so to say, for each project, where we outline the setup of potential epics. And then when a large enough group said that this document outline is okay, then we can actually create the epics around it. So I think this would help.
It's a good idea.
Yep, that sounds good. I wrote down what Brian said, and I think that let's memorialize that. Let's do some thinking about it, and let's resolve that by the next meeting we will have a worked out and written down approach that everybody can get behind in terms of planning and organizing and then managing the work, right? And, you know, managing and checking that the work is getting done.
I mean, for now, perhaps it would be a good idea to just include something like a Google Doc link into each of the projects that don't have any issues under them for now. So at least there's everybody who can read the ZenHub roadmap can already click on integration tools. Then he would find in the description of the project, he would find a link to some kind of Google Doc where we at least start to collect arguments and discussions before something template-ish is in place, perhaps for the next
let me
2 or 4
suggest
weeks.
that you know, what if during planning and we, you know, first of all, Stefan, we'll get you access to the to create these projects, right? So there should be an integration project in here. And I do like the fact that these create these nice big buckets, right? Healthcare and other things. And we can as easily get rid of them as we can move them around. And one of the things we can do during TSC meetings going forward and SSC meetings is drag things up and down to see, which ones do we want to make higher priority and that sort of thing. Which ones do we want to point out to the community or high priority? But that you could then one epic, right? So one epic below that. So instead of all this stuff, we'd have one epic, to Brian's point, that we can use just the epic description and comments, or we can in that point to a Google Doc.
Good idea.
Yeah, let's start with just the epic itself and see if that suffices. That way we don't have another tool to go out to. But if we need it, then we can go to a Google Doc as well.
Okay, and for the definition, who can contribute to that epic definition and finding arguments and structure? It would be about the next topic on the agenda concerning the roles and permissions, I guess.
Yes, and so
because
let's go to that.
I couldn't, for example. Yeah.
Yeah. So just in the interest of time, and we do have a hard stop in 12 minutes. CI integration process. I assume that we haven't made a lot of progress on that yet, and Jory's not here. So, is this a topic for next time, perhaps?
I can give a quick update. So I chatted with Kyle about it, specifically just the details of what we tried out for the CI system. We're going to experiment with GitHub Actions because that's kind of baked in. Jory had a call with Circle CI, and but we did not connect last week, or I could find out the details of that. So we're moving forward with looking at GitHub Actions. We still have some outstanding questions about, you know, how and where the CI aspect of it is run, and who pays for that, and how much we are going to end up charging against the Ethereum Oasis GitHub account with those types of integrations. But so
I think it's 2,000 minutes that we get for free or something.
yeah, we get, it says the free version gets 2,000 quote unquote minutes of execution. So that gets us about, I mean, just some rough envelope, back of the envelope math will give us maybe 100 builds. So
we decided to just use master, right?
Yeah. And then we just build and run CI against master instead of, which would be instead of every pull request, every pull request would probably be the ideal state. But for now, just the master branch, and see where we go from there. But I'm going to try to meet up with Jory, or virtually, obviously, to get the details of the Circle CI call. Maybe that may, change our direction a little bit. But at this point, we don't know.
Yeah, I think I'd be in a good position to actually look into the actual work behind the CI process, whether that's GitHub Actions compatible or Circle CI compatible. As soon as this Makefile branch is in, I think it's a logical next step.
Okay, and Brian, and it sounds like Kyle, you guys are buddying up on that and make sure that it sounds like that's well handled. Shall we move on to the next topic? Eric, do you have any other questions on that? I know you want to bring that up.
Yeah, I just wanted an update on that, and if anyone ends up having hardware requirements, I put together a Google Doc and shared that on the TSC private channel. So just hit me up, and we'll arrange hardware for that.
Oh,
okay. Yeah, I did have some general questions around what that meant, but we can take that offline.
Yeah, we'll take it offline into the Slack.
Great, thanks.
Cool.
Okay. So on the accesses, did some sleuthing around and figured out that, yeah, felt a little silly for having forgotten this, but so the ZenHub and GitHub permissioning is unique, and one of the things, so we have a public repo, anybody can fork it, anybody can do stuff, but in order to mess around with issues and epics and stuff, you have to, or issues is all you get in GitHub, of different types of labels, you have to be able to have read access or above. So that means that we need some kind of, and again, this is not for resolution today, this is only for discussion very quickly at this point. I'd like to bring up the fact that even people who are regular contributors right now find themselves, frustratingly not able to do, to work with the projects or the epics or the issues in a meaningful way. You don't want to open that up to the public, because then you get like the equivalent of Zoom bombing, right? So you don't want that. So there's this balance between the fact that we want to be very open again and not have insiders and outsiders, but we also want to have some assurance that people that have access to write things in the repo are with on the issues side are not going to be pulling shenanigans, right? So that's,
when you say issues, do you mean a GitHub issue like as it is today?
Correct. The GitHub issue, or in ZenHub, they just kind of put an overlay on top of issues, right?
Okay, because I've never really, except this one time, I've never seen a repo issue bombed. That happened like a year and a half ago for some Ethereum repos, but yeah, that would just be blocking them basically. And if they come up with a new account, you contact GitHub and they take care of it pretty quickly.
Well, that is certainly a way to go. As we could ask Jory to make the public. We could I think we can make that, everybody, the world right access. That would reduce, but that's a decision. That's a policy decision
Yeah.
with implications.
Let's hold off on that. I mean, there are ways to throttle in through GitHub folks from things. So we could look to see what levers we have before we open the floodgates there.
Good idea.
So the goal for next time, and I'll take it on unless anybody else wants it, is to have a well articulated and well listened. So go out and listen to everybody, get some one-on-ones, and develop an approach that reduces the amount, that keeps the amount of effort required to get somebody into the group of people that have that level of access. Make it easy, but also balance the other factors. And actually, Stefan, if you can't, would you check to see that you aren't able to create a new project or up in here like this?
Yes, of course. I checked. I cannot add. I cannot edit. I cannot reorder.
Yeah, that's weird. Okay, so that's the other action I'll take, is to make sure with Jory that we have normalized the permissioning. Everybody on the TSC should have total access to do that.
Yeah, if that is solved, then forget everything I said before. I thought it was part of a bigger role discussion process or something.
No, that should be working. So I'll take the action to debug that problem.
Thank you.
Okay, let's move on to priorities. And it's good, we have 5 minutes left without objection. Priorities for the next coming weeks. I mean, this isn't a company that we can tell people what to do in. This is a community that can decide to do for itself what it wants to do. But we can focus people's attention on things. And I think that's the good job of anybody who wants to play a leadership role in the community. That's really the thing, right? So it strikes me that, and I will propose that to set momentum and keep it, there are some things that we have to get serious about sooner than other things. And let me just throw out a straw man for discussion, and then we can take it up later. Or in fact, I'd like to anybody that has a sense of this being wrong, let me know. First thing is real world integration. And we need to find we need to kind of ask the universe that we find as quickly as possible some examples of using baseline to integrate a real thing with another real thing. In the POC, we use 2 Mongo databases that are resident. So the next step clearly would be to see an SAP and an Oracle apps or something like that. And Johan and Stefan have particular powerhouses for doing this sort of thing, but others have that as well. And it strikes me that this would be a good thing to let the community know is on everybody's mind. Does anybody have a disagreement or a thought about that?
Yeah, I mean, basically this already covers the hackathon update then. I mean, if we just come to something that is valuable to show to the world, then it will start all these processes for the community to pick it up. So we do, in our hackathon, we do an example with one specific integration case and one specific setup, so to say, and everybody can watch the walkthrough and check the code and do continue for himself. So I would think that these things evolve as soon as we are like 4 weeks in the future, then this will be way more easier than telling it now on the more theoretical level.
Right on. So yeah, and given our time frame right now, I guess we'll leave it at that. We have 3 minutes left, and we do have a hard stop. Specs are the next thing, and then use cases, and those 3 things add up to abstraction and generalization, right? So if we were to just run off and do abstraction and generalization of the current POC without a few use cases, like I think it's issue 95 is Balaji is working on a COVID idea. I made a comment in there for him on that over the weekend. Take a look. It's kind of an interesting thought. It borderline deals with identity in a way that makes me a little uncomfortable, but I think it's kind of cool and could be workable. And I like the idea of, like using a 1Password for that. But those are use cases, and it extended the idea of what baseline would be doing on a practical basis to a couple of things that we haven't thought of in the original POC. So different use cases that we can apply and say, well, what else did we miss in the baseline stuff is important so that we can have a good spec that we can then abstract and generalize the POC into that. So the order of operations seemed to me to be get real world integrations, get more companies on board to this thing. The integrations are going to show them that it's exciting. The addition of more companies will also show excitement. There's a specs doc in the docs already, and we can start to build on that starting right away, and we can start to accumulate more uses and see kind of through those lenses what other things in the spec need to be there. And that should all create a recipe for the abstraction and generalization. Does that sound right?
Yep, this sounds perfect. And I think it is just the way that it will happen. So with every hackathonish example project, of course, one result should be to take out some of the findings and check whether they are valid for put in the abstract protocol and not only the concrete use case.
Right on. We are at time. And as the convener, I will take responsibility for not managing our time better this week. And so as penance, I will follow up with everybody with a digest of what we discussed and action items, because we can't recap them here. So look for that note. And with that, thanks everybody. We'll see you. Let's assume 2 weeks from now. Or do we want to go next week?
2 weeks is good for me.
I vote for 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
2 weeks, 2 weeks, 2 weeks.
2 weeks.
All right.
Weeks.
Thanks, John.
Yep, 3 weeks.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks.
Thank you, Lily.
See ya.
Thanks. Bye-bye.